What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Roots. So I'm going to review the 2006 mixtape by Killer Mike. Basically, this project is called The Killer, and it came out in the summer of 2006. And basically, Killer Mike had a series of projects that he dropped in 2006. I want to say that Pledge Allegiance to the Grind 1, which came out in the fall of 2006, was like a double album. Wasn't sure. That's an interesting pitch just because that was Killer Mike's second album, so it's a pretty good pitch to kind of get that. I reviewed Pledge Allegiance to the Grind 2 from 2008. That is a classic album. Definitely recommend that one quite a bit. It's a pretty definitely work of art to kind of get that one. It's very low-key type one, especially nowadays, I'd have to say. But the concept of it is, this is a heralded project here. This mixtape, The Killer, was a heralded project here as well. It had some singles on it, which was interesting because Killer Mike was trying to blow up around the same time the Outkast was kind of wrapping up their cycle as far as doing albums, as far as that pitch went. Not like they were intentionally wrapping it up, but around that time, that was pretty much like Outkast and Dungeon Family and some of those type of folks were trying to blow up throughout 2006, 2007. So like Killer Mike basically was the next to blow up that was coming on like the train as far as that particular kind of went. Some interesting stuff to kind of get it. Now, basically Killer Mike had been putting out albums since at least 2003, but he had like some collaboration projects, some stuff like that, good affiliation with Outkast, some of that type fare. But this is an interesting project here just because this kind of has like a good chunk of original material. This is not like, this is around the era when Gangsta Grillz projects were super huge as far as pitches like that kind of happened. Folks like Lil Wayne, Jeezy, T.I., some of those type folks were doing that sort of thing. This is not a Gangsta Grillz, but it is basically like it's a relative mixtape within that fashion, just within the concept. But it actually has more new songs on here than it doesn't. So it's a pretty good pitch to get this. It does have some of that East Coast flavor, like typical Southern cast. It's a good concept, basically like Killer Mike's version of like what Jeezy and Lil Wayne were kind of doing in 2005, 2006. Pretty good pitch to get some of that. Do appreciate the concepts of it. This is a very superb mixtape here. Definitely appreciate this one quite a bit. I would have to say it's a good concept. It's going to get another heralded score. It's an excellent concept. Kind of see this. This is a mixtape I would recommend downloading quite a bit. It's a simple concept because it is free and pitches like that, I'd have to say. But the only problem with it is the one song that you wouldn't be able to find on this project. Not really sure if this mixtape is available for retail as far as that particular kind of goes, but there's one song on here called Niggas Down South that is not available on like the Dat Piff edition. The Dat Piff edition that's on like the Internet Archive and pitches like that. And there's at least two renditions of this mixtape I tried downloading, and both of them did not have Niggas Down South. So an interesting concept as to why that particular song wasn't. There are some recycled songs on here. It's interesting that My Chrome was available on this particular project because that's on the Purple Ribbon All Stars project. So there's some songs on here. There's 3 repeat songs. It's really not that many in terms of songs that were to be found elsewhere. There's one off of Paul Wall's Chick Magnet from 2004. There's one off the Purple Ribbon All Stars album from 2005, and there's one that Killer Mike saved for his album from 2008, Pledge Allegiance to the Grind 2, which is basically, he said you can download that album for free, so it's a good concept. But that's basically on the 2008 album also, I'm the Shit. So that's the concept about that one. But really, there's not that many recycled songs, so I'd have to say it's a good concept here. There are a couple of mixtape type instrumental freestyles as far as that pitching goes. Killer Mike's a pretty good lyricist as far as I would particularly kind of have with it. Do appreciate the concept of it, but for the most part, out of basically 17, there's 21 songs on this particular project. I'm not going to count the outro because that's just kind of, the outro is another song that was not included on the Dat Piff download, but it just felt like it was just more of like freestyles to other songs as far as that particular kind of went. So that might be a decent song. I don't know why that wasn't available, but it wasn't. But basically out of 21 songs, there's 4 skits, including the outro. So the intro and then 2 other skits. So that would narrow it down to 17 songs. Out of those 17 songs, I wound up recommending 14. So it's a pretty good pitch. Definitely pretty close to getting a 10 out of 10. You'll find this album, this mixtape is going to get pretty close to a 10 out of 10. I'll just go ahead and talk about the 3 songs I don't recommend on here, and then we'll get to the singles. So basically, the 3 songs I don't recommend on this project would be A Dope Story, Dungeon Family, Dedication, and Son of the Dope Man. So I just would have to say about those. Basically, some of these kind of have some of that evening dredge. I kind of feel like A Dope Story was just kind of a homely type one that just didn't pull off the vibes that well. It's just not that affable one. Dungeon Family, Dedication was just kind of some evening dredge, but I just feel like songs like Bad Day, Worst Day, and like Niggas Down South just nailed that particular vibe a little bit better. It was just kind of the concept, just kind of felt like a somewhat clumsy kind of song title as far as that particular kind of went, and song topic just within that concept. I mean, it's cool that he's a part of that particular crowd as far as that kind of goes, but it just didn't really have this much affability towards it. And then Son of the Dope Man, I like the production on here. This is some more evening dredge that could have been like some good turn up or a buzzing type feeling as far as getting ready to step out a bit. But it's just the story. I don't feel like that one should have been a story type song. It's just kind of the concept I would have liked for that one to have just been a little bit more just like recreational type fare or something like that. But yeah, that might be a song maybe I could click with later, but for the time it just didn't seem as affable. But so yeah, there were two singles out this project. There were two singles out this project. I'll talk about both of these in some fashion. I'm at least going to talk about Get 'em Shawty. I'm at least going to talk about Get 'em Shawty featuring 36 Mafia because that is an original song. That's pretty dope that was released as a single. But My Chrome, which was the second single, at least that's what Wikipedia says. Problem with this particular song is it was also on the Purple Ribbon All Stars album. So it's just kind of the concept. It's a great song. I definitely recommend it on that particular product, the Purple Ribbon All Stars. I realized that particular album, the Purple Ribbon album, is a little bit subpar, but it is worth it to kind of. I mean, I was supposed if you could get it free here, just because the Purple Ribbon album really only has about 3 or 4 hot songs out of like the 20 that were on there. But I still would have to say it is on that project. So I'll basically talk about Get 'em Shawty. This is a real nice song. This is a great single here. It's like a compelling collab. I would definitely have to say it's like a glitzy kind of get tore up mess of a song. I'd have to say in particular this real nice buzzing type one to get. This is the like I was saying, this is a nice buzz single. I would definitely have to suppose, and this is a pretty underrated song. It's just a good pitch on here. Juicy J and DJ Paul back up Killer Mike on here. It's kind of an underrated type concept as far as that particular kind of goes. Just getting this sort of collaboration, just because Killer Mike is a pretty vicious lyricist as far as that particular kind of goes, and you combine that with 36 Mafia's typical crunk as far as that would particularly kind of happen. They were huge as hell back in like the mid late 2000s pitches like that. So it's just an overall kind of bubbly and this boisterous kind of collaboration and chemistry that works excellently. I'd have to say, just real nice one. Now this was, like I was saying, this is kind of like a buzz single, I would feel like, but it's just kind of the concept. It just feels lesser known about just because Killer Mike was kind of off to the wayside in the 2000s. He did have quite a bit of content, and the critics really adored his content as far as that particular kind of goes. Hip Hop Deluxe, Double XL, some of those type places typically gave like his albums like rave scores and stuff, but he just didn't really have like the catch on single. But this is a good affable type one to get. This is not one that's overly politico or just more super lyrical and just kind of dull or something like that. That this is more food for thought. This is actually a buzzing type song that has a lot of appeal. It's a good ass shaker for like ladies in the club as far as that particular kind of goes. Just some good, nice mid late 2000s kind of crunk noise to kind of get here. So this is a good concept. Killer Mike was doing it. But then My Chrome is a nice one. I do recommend this song, but once again, it's just on the Purple Ribbon All Stars album from 2005. This has a great hook on here. Big Boy's kind of on here as well. He helps back up Killer Mike on this particular song. Beautiful synthy type song. This works real well. Glitzy kind of club appeal, I'd have to say. It's a good, nice one, but you might as well just get the Purple Ribbon All Stars album, despite the fact that it may not be worth full blown the money. I mean, nowadays it probably is, just because it's probably only like $8 or so. But I just would have to say there's really only about 4 or 5 hot songs on that particular project. But that may be subjective to some folks. But so that's kind of the concept. So yeah, out of so I talked about the songs I didn't recommend. So basically, the songs I do recommend on here, Grind Time Official is a pretty nice one. It's like a creeping kind of late trap cut, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a good ghoulish demon time and kind of local Travers type song to kind of get here. And this is just a good song for some snacks, I'd have to say. Good pitch for that. This is kind of the same typical type fare that like 36 Mafia, Project Pat, some of those type folks kind of have. There's definitely some good night appeal. The thing about this particular mixtape is it kind of combines like the end of work shift, kind of evening dredge pitches like that. Just kind of the initial moments of getting tasks done and getting ready to step out a bit. I mean, there's not as many full-blown nightclub songs in here, I noticed. It's just kind of more car traversing like the evening sense, maybe getting like some Popeyes, something like that, getting some Blimpies, some Jimmy John's, some of that type fare, just get some good snackage, but then also getting some swishers and pitches like that and just kind of getting towards it. In terms of like the ass shaking dance club type songs, I feel like apart from Get 'em Shawty, there's just not that many on here. I definitely feel like Pledge Allegiance to the Grind 2 from 2008 definitely has more bops on here, but at least My Chrome is another one like that. But in terms of like the full blown kind of nightclub bounce, it just doesn't have that many. But I do feel like Down Ass Chick is pretty close. But Grind Time Official, Bad Day, Worst Day, Niggas Down South, some of those type ones just have a little bit more kind of evening dredge and just night commerce as far as that particular kind of goes, and Watch is kind of like that too. But probably the closest thing to like another nightclub bounce on here that really has like some good dredge about it, that this is kind of in a low-key kind of buzzing type sense, would be Down Ass Chick. Really appreciate the appeal of this one. Has a great hook on here by an R&B singer. It's like a low-key groove and buzzing ladies trap noise of a song, I had to say in particular. It's like a slinky kind of evening commerce, I would definitely have to say. And definitely one of the mixtape's highlights, I definitely have to suppose. It's a real nice one, real Apple type one to kind of get here. Smoke with some chicas and pitches like that. It's a good concept. Just appreciate like the evening commerce. Just woke up, 7:38 pitches like that. It's a good concept call up. Get some local shindigs going as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Just real nice one for that Apple kind of sense. It's real nice kind of groove and appeal about that particular one. Bad Day, Worst Day is a pretty nice one. It's like a work shift wrapping up kind of evening afterthoughts of a song I'd have to say in particular. Just the concept of just being in the car, pitches like that, just got done with work, some of those type fares, just the thoughts that you're going to have just within the concept of like, all right, today was either a bitch or it wasn't, something like that. Just kind of the concept of just what am I going to do next, situate that type of appeal. This wide awake kind of smoke soon type tune, I'd have to suppose. Just get the concept of getting ready to get some smoke, just get ready to turn up a bit, figure out what's going to happen, some of that type fare. Just I mean, really, I haven't seen 3 6 Mafia make too many, and this is kind of like a food for thought type song. I think on this particular song, Killer Mike calls out like Bill O'Reilly. Ludacris was kind of having beef with Bill O'Reilly back in those days. Bill O'Reilly kind of had some beefs with rap music as far as that pitch kind of went. Just some kind of minor political type fare, just talking about basic concepts like that. Bill O'Reilly is one of the subjects that comes up within that relative mix, but just some pitches of that relative fare as far as that particular kind of happens. So this is a good concept, just kind of have some of this because not a ton of folks kind of had, more full blown food for thought just within that aspect. So it is a good concept to get some of this, but this is just like some afterthoughts, kind of standard commute and just gab as far as that particular kind of goes. It's a real good one to get ready to smoke and just that evening commerce. Another one that's pretty similar to that's not on this particular product, but it may be on like the retail version. I would try to track down this song in whichever way. I'm not really sure as to how to get a hold of this song, but Niggas Down South is a nice song that was originally on the mixtape. This is like a dusky kind of end of work shift kind of relief, I would say. Good, once again, good pairing with Bad Day, Worst Day. This is like some Travers kind of ruminating, and this is kind of an errands wrap up type song to kind of get here. So it's just a good concept to get some of these. This would have to say. Yeah, it's just too bad. I mean, this mixtape is worth the purchase, I would have to suppose. If you do want to purchase this particular product, it's not like it's a bad investment, I'd have to suppose. I just question. I don't know if you can get it on CD or something like that, or whether it'd be on eBay or Amazon, some of those type places, or it might be on iTunes, some of those type places. Not really sure, but it is worth it. East Side, West Side's a pretty nice one. It's like a housebound kind of typical Don Cannon tidy up type fare, I'd have to say about this one in particular. It's like a vintage kind of 2000 mixtape. The song is like a vintage kind of 2000s mixtape vibes that this song particularly kind of gives off. And this is just like some house cleaning type music, standard residential errands pitches like that, just typical around the house type fare as far as that would particularly kind of happen. Just some good DJ drama, Don Cannon type mixtape typeness to kind of get very similar to Lil Wayne type fare and Jeezy type fare, some of those type folks. Cameron, Joel Santana, some of those type folks. It's good pitch to kind of get that one. Good concept for that. But yeah, there are kind of some East Coast songs on here, just to be able to say. It's just like in a more typical mixtape type fashion, just kind of the concept that I'm surprised that this wasn't a Gangsta Grills or something like that, because it has that typical kind of candor is within that relative concept. Just another type album that kind of has some of that. But Pushback is another song like that. It's definitely one that reminds me a lot of like the Blueprint from Jay-Z, just pitches like that. It's like a jazzy kind of East Coast kind of social noise but song. Kind of feels like an East Coast club type song, I'd have to say in particular. This one reminds me of like a Just Blaze beat, I'd have to say, from like the early 2000s. And this one definitely gives off some Blueprint vibes by Jay-Z, I'd have to say. And this really has the affability, I'd have to suppose. It's good concept kind of get some of these. This kind of the concept, I mean, I feel like just within the concept, this is a good mixtape here, I'd have to say, but it's pretty varietized, I'd have to suppose. Just the concept, there's some Evening Dredge on here, some East Coast type songs on here, some Lil Wayne kind of style mixtape type lyricism that kind of goes along with it. But I will say that a concept that's not going to full blown nash this down, because this mixtape is going to get a pretty high score, but just the concept, I do think it probably could have used like another song like Get 'Em Shoddy as far as pitches like that kind of happen. That's one song that's just kind of, I feel like I was saying earlier, this does have some good night appeal, but in terms of the concept of actually being at the nightclub and getting towards it and actually having like some of that ferocious kind of bite, it doesn't have that as full blown. But it's just kind of the concept. I'd say probably Get 'Em Shoddy, a little bit of Grind Time Official is like a creeping type one, and Down Ass Chick kind of has some of that appeal, but it does somewhat slack on like the concept of like some full-blown Friday Night Blitz. But AO is a pretty nice one. It's like a blazing kind of summer day basic energy it has, suppose, in particular. This is one that reminds me of Rubber Band Man by T.I. I'd have to suppose this same sort of sports game, outdoors kind of fare as far as that particular kind of goes. And this is pretty much like a hot day type tune to kind of get here. Just some standard summer activity as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Basic bop to kind of get within the summer fare. It's good concept for that. Just real nice kind of typical fanfare type outing point as far as that would kind of happen. And I feel like Watch is a pretty nice one. This is just labeled like a bonus track on the Dat Piff edition, but it's actually called Watch. Has some other cats on here, which is a pretty good pitch. They're more pedestrian, it would seem like, but it is a good concept. It's like a looming kind of sentinel-like night commerce of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a late outing of a song, I'd have to say. Definitely smoke a few and just some basic kind of sleaze of a gem. Just some basic sleaze of a gem, I'd have to say in particular. So it's just typical kind of 3 6 Mafia kind of out and about. Just smoke a few on the walk home or traverse home as far as pitches like that kind of happen. Just gas station type commerce pitches like that. Just getting like burritos, pizza, some of that type fare, just standard concepts of just local traverse, some of that type fare, just good concept for that. And I do like some of this night commerce. I do feel like songs like Grind Time Official, Watch, at least Watch and Grind Time Official have some night commerce, and Bad Day, Worst Day, and Niggas Down South kind of have some evening commerce. So it's just kind of the concept. And then Down Ass Chick is kind of like some evening sleaze, just demon time type sleaze with ladies more in mind, I'd have to say. So it's a good concept. But yeah, this mixtape is pretty pitch, I'd have to say. So this is the concept of what I'm going to score this particular mixtape, me recommending basically 14 out of 17 songs in here. But in terms of like the new stuff, I'd have to say to talk about a couple of these other songs. Like there were two mixtape kind of typical type songs like Lil Wayne freestyle type mixtape type format. And that would be Fuck You Music and then Ain't No Love. One of which, both of these are East Coast type beats. Ain't No Love is the Heart of the City from Jay-Z's The Blueprint, which is a pretty good fare. That's not a typical type one that gets freestyle to. Pretty good pitch to kind of have some of that just within the standard fare, like some of these East Coast type ones that just makes it more in like the DJ drama kind of Gangsta Grills type format, Don Cannon type fare. It's nice to see Killer Mike on that sort of beat. But then Fuck You Music, I'd have to say. I've heard this beat before. I want to say it's like a Cameron beat. I don't really remember who is full blown it is. It feels like an East Coast beat. I've heard this particular beat before. I just can't full blown remember. But it is a nice one to kind of get Killer Mike over. This is a pretty frenetic type one. This would kind of be like some buzzing kind of nightclub type fare, I'd have to say. Pretty close to that. I feel like this is like a standard like Killer Mike on his Lil Wayne type stuff as far as that particular kind of goes along with it, I'd have to say. Just a good excellent type fare to kind of get. Just him freestyling as far as that pitch kind of goes along with it. So if you do want some Southern cats and like some East Coast type songs, this is a good example of that. But I'd say probably apart from Fuck You Music and Get 'Em Shawty, that's about the brunt of like the nightclub type fare. But yeah, like I was saying, at least 11 out of 17 songs on this particular mixtape that are relatively or mostly kind of new. At least 11 out of 17 songs that are new on this particular fare of this mixtape, plus another 3 songs that are on other projects. I'd have to say I'm going to go ahead and give this mixtape 14 out of 17, approximately a 9.5 out of 10. I feel like 3 songs that are to be found elsewhere that are not exclusive to this product is pretty good. In terms of like 17 on here, just to say that only 3 out of 17 are just to be found on other projects. I do appreciate that concept pretty well. It's pretty good for a mixtape from the 2000s when that didn't always happen. Not pretty much over 90% of the new songs on this, and say pretty much over 85-90% of the new songs on this project are pretty excelsior and overall awesome as far as pitches like that kind of goes. So it's definitely some boisterous type appeal. Overall, sheerly quality mixtape. It's just the fact, I feel like the only reason why this project didn't get like a 10 out of 10, just apart from like, I feel like the only one of the few true reasons why this mixtape didn't get a 10 out of 10 is just because the concept just needed more nightclub bounce. I definitely think another quality song just on the nightclub type appeal, Get 'Em Shawty, is definitely necessary. That maybe that it's not necessarily like the bullseye of the song on this particular product. That's definitely one of the best songs, and there are other good moments, but I probably could have used like a follow-up moment that was as quality as that, because Killer Mike is more off to the wayside, which is just kind of the concept. I definitely think it needed a few more attention grabbing type moments, especially in like a casual sense. But the social score is going to get a 9 out of 10 as a result of that, because Killer Mike is a quality lyricist. The critics out there tend to love him. He has racked up a Grammy or two as far as pitches like that kind of happens. He typically has some critically rave type albums, some of that type fare. Pretty, the lyrics are good, pitches like that. It's just kind of the concept that he just doesn't have. And I mean, he has some attention grabbing songs, and he's not like a boring songwriter as far as pitches like that kind of happen. But I just feel like for folks that are just more casual, just within that sense, I feel like Grind Time Official, Down Ass Chick, and Get 'Em Shawty are like probably like the biggest draw points of this particular album. There's not really any guests. There's not terribly many guests on this project to help attract some attention. Also, I feel like 3-6 Mafia is probably the biggest guest on here within that relative sense. Big Boy's on here, but it's on a repeat song, so there's just not a lot of kind of assistance to get Killer Mike more publicity as far as that particular goes. This is an excellent album, I would have to say, or mixtape, I'd have to say. It's just kind of the concept. It just feels more hardcore and less kind of casual just within some of that. I mean, it does have the songs, but they're just more in like a relatively mid-pace or almost minor kind of sense, I'd say. So 9 social, I'd have to say. In terms of the future, like Killer Mike just dropped an album in August of 2024, so it's a pretty good pitch to get some more of that. He said it was on the same vibes as his Michael album from 2023, so it's just a continuation of that particular album, which is a pretty good pitch. I'll have to see about some of those. I'm definitely going to get to some more Killer Mike soon enough. There are some ones I'm thinking about reviewing. Pledge Allegiance to the Grind 1. I mean, if it is a double album, I may push that back a bit, but I'm going to definitely get to some more Killer Mike, maybe maybe Monster from 2003, some of those type pitches. But this is a very affable project here, despite the complaints I had about it. Keep in mind, I gave this mixtape like a 9.5 out of 10, all but on the cusp of being a classic. It does have the good songs on here, definitely some good Evening, Dredge, pitches like that. I'd have to say some good Just Got Done with Work Shifts, some good East Coast type fare, and like typical kind of dedication by Lil Wayne type format, some of that type fare. Some good stuff like some good night songs just for smokage at night, getting some burritos and pizza, some of that type fare, and like a couple nightclub bounce type songs like Fuck You Music and Get 'em Shoddy. But it's just kind of the fact it just feels less casual bound, and it's just kind of the concept that the nightclub bounce is just not as sheer. But this is mostly like a highly Excelsior excellent type project here.